You need to be content where you are now with what you have now. Or else when you get to wherever you think you want to go, whenever you achieve the number of followers, views, likes, sales, money, whatever that you want to have, you will still not be content because you're still the same you.
Good afternoon, Brock Johnson.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thanks for your time.
Of course, really excited to be here.
Well, so you agreed to talk to me today about mental health in
Mm-hmm.
the world of social media. Let's first, though, talk about you, and then we're going to get into the mental health. So my goal is you're going to teach me to guard my own mental health, by the way, in this
Okay.
big, bad social media world. But first, tell me about you.
Yeah, so I was raised in a very entrepreneurial family. My parents have both owned and sold and grown numerous businesses throughout my lives in pretty much every niche imaginable, every industry possible. My mom's always been the marketing whiz on the face of the brands, and my dad's always been the guy behind the scenes, the CFO, if you will. And so growing up, I very much learned through osmosis. I learned through monkey see, monkey do. We weren't sitting down at the dinner table and having conversations about KPIs and ROI and business, but my sister and I both really got to learn from watching our parents. Fast forward then to my first year of college, my freshman year of college, I was a student athlete. And so as a student athlete, you have very limited free time and availability. But very quickly within my first year, it was actually my first summer going into my first year, I was hit with this really strong urge. It was something that I couldn't shake from my brain. That was, I had a silver spoon in my mouth and I wanted to take it out. I
Mm.
came from a very privileged background. I grew up with successful parents, and suddenly I was in this college athletics environment where, and this was before the days of NIL deals like it is now, where student athletes are making so much money. But back then, student athletes made no money. At best, you were on a scholarship, but a lot of kids, of course, weren't. And so I was able to provide for myself because of my parents providing for me, but so many of my teammates and classmates could not. So I wanted to start my own business. I wanted to make an income for myself. And I knew I had to start my own business because I wasn't going to be able to work a traditional 9 to 5. My time just wouldn't allow it between books and ball. And so at that time, I created a business that was really just an online course that married two things. It married a skill set that I knew that I have and a need that I knew that the world had. The skill set that I knew that I had was, I was a freshman in college, and I obviously was a teenager. I knew how to use Snapchat. This was back in like 2015, 2016. I knew how to use Snapchat. I knew what was going on Snapchat. And I had just taught my parents how to use it. So I had just taught them, here's how you use this app. So that's what I knew I had. The world, all over the news, was people freaking out, moms especially, panicking about, what are my kids doing on Snapchat? What are my teens doing over on this crazy app? And so I said, hey, I can help that need. I can help address it by teaching them, here's what's going on, here's how you use the app, and here are some things to be aware of with Snapchat. So that was my initial course. That was my initial business. Again, I launched it when I was like 18 or 19 years old. And I had a little bit of success early on, but it wasn't like I was, racking in the dough and suddenly I'm a millionaire. I probably made like a couple $1,000 from that initial business in an entire year's time. But from that, I was able to learn so much. I was able to grow so much as a business owner. And my clientele, all of these moms who I just taught how to use Snapchat, were suddenly like, wait, okay, we have small businesses. We are business owners ourselves. How do we use this social media channel as a tool to grow our business in the same way that you just did, Brock? So I pivoted from Snapchat to, for moms keeping their teens safe, instead to Snapchat for marketing, Snapchat for business owners. Then from there, I pivoted again a few years later when Instagram released Instagram stories, and there was this like mass exodus from Snapchat. And so I went with the crowd. Again, I looked for the skill set I had, which was at that time Snapchat stories, which basically were Instagram stories. And I looked for the need, which is, hey, there's this new feature called Instagram stories and everyone wants to know how to use it. And so that's how I transitioned from Snapchat to Instagram. And since then, the rest is history, as they say. I've been coaching people on how to grow their brand and business on Instagram specifically for about the last 7 years.
So you just said something that really, I've never heard it and I love it. You said you knew you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and you wanted to take it out.
Hmm.
Here's a side question for you. What did that do for you in
Hmm.
adulting? In adulting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take the silver spoon out. I mean, not all kids at, early 20s see that. What did that do for you in adulting?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. I don't know if I've fully reflected on that period and that decision, but I feel like that gave me freedom, that
Yeah.
gave me autonomy, that gave me so much confidence, and that just made me a lot more sure of myself. Also, now moving forward as a business owner and just as a human being, knowing that I did this for myself. I
Yeah.
didn't just rely on mommy and daddy's credit card.
Totally. Well, and also I'm just, as you're talking, thinking, did it bring about meaning and purpose? Because now you're doing something on your own and there's all of a sudden meaning in life and purpose in life versus handed to you by mom and dad's wealth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely did. It definitely gave me that sense of purpose, and that's very much like what drove the decision in the first place was not just wanting to take the silver spoon out, but I wanted to be able to provide for myself in the same way, not maybe not exactly the same level, but provide for myself in the way that my parents did. I wanted to be able to
Mm.
get groceries and take myself out to eat and not worry about the bills at the end of the month or whatnot. I also wanted to be able to treat my friends. Like that was something that my family and my parents instilled and showed us from a very young age, is like take care of those around you and like
Mm.
spoil your loved ones. And I wanted to be able to do that for my friends, but I knew I wouldn't be able to do that based off the $20 I had saved up in my wallet.
Well, it gives you a reason to wake up every morning.
Hmm.
You got a
Yeah.
reason to wake up every morning. Okay, so we're now going to shift into all talk about mental health because this is this is my passion now within social media. But I actually have a question for you. Why did you agree to an interview with me? Because if you look at me on Instagram, I told you I'm like this like humble public servant of a teacher and just got on Instagram and I think I'm maybe at 135 followers. So you're getting nothing out of this. Let's be clear. I want to know why you said yes to this interview.
Yeah, I'm a giver, but I don't want to be like, oh, I'm a giver. I just want to give back. No, I don't care how many followers you have. First and foremost, let me say I am a huge proponent of mental health. And as a man, as a straight white man in America, as a straight white man in America who played college football, like I come from the most masculine background you can imagine. And oftentimes that background very much lends itself towards, shut up and stuff it down and don't talk about it. And talking about mental health is for sissies, and so I think that in general, and for anyone listening who also has a mental health podcast, I'm usually way more apt to say yes to a mental health related
Mm.
podcast than anything else, because I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. And I appreciate the opportunity to share my own perspective around these things.
Great, because you're going to actually teach me in a sec to
Good.
navigate my own
Okay.
mental health as a 52-year-old woman. I just want to add, I am still in contact with students that are now in their 20s and 30s. And over again, I keep hearing them say, we're not talking about this, like what
Mm,
social media is doing to us, which we'll get into.
mhm.
And I feel that the dialogue is so important of how we guard ourselves because it's not going anywhere. It's not going away. Right? All of
Mhm.
my former students said, you've got to get on this if you want to get out there. And it is just
Yeah.
growing. But let's back up. So in high school, there was an article. I'm gonna quote you if that's okay. I prepared
Go
for
for
this.
it.
Voyage, Utah, your Insta Club Hub promotion. And this is what you said. I was always one of those kids who was always praised for being great at talking to adults and wise beyond my years. I took a lot of pride in working hard and being mature, but I also realized that underlying perfectionism, people pleasing tendencies, and anxiety fueled a lot about that. Can you talk about that? Because what struck me is you grew up privileged and you still had challenges like people on the other end of the socio-demographic spectrum.
Yeah, totally. And I'm really glad that we are talking about this. I remember I was reading a book one time. I forget what book it was. There was definitely a period of my life in college where I was reading every mental health book and every book that any therapist ever put out. And I read this statement about how the kids who are praised for being great at talking to adults, who are wise beyond their years, and they're an old soul in a young body, these sorts of things, which I wore as a badge of pride growing up. And I was like, yeah, I am those things. Then as I'm reading this chapter, I'm still feeling this way, like, yeah, I am those things. I was those things. And then the chapter goes on to say, well, that's oftentimes caused by the child feeling stress and anxiety and, feeling like they can't be a child, that they have to be more mature and they have to be super hyper vigilant and aware of all the emotions of all the adults in the room so that they can, adapt and meet the needs, so to speak, of the adult, which is crazy to think about, that the child was adapting to meet the needs of the adult. And so, yeah, that was something that I realized while I was in college. And to your point, we're all humans at the end of the day. Just because one human has more money in their bank account or more square feet on their house, we're still humans. And so for myself, my stressors and anxiety growing up wasn't that I was going to be physically abused in my home. It wasn't that
Right.
I had parents who struggled with, like alcoholism. I wasn't worrying about whether or not I was going to eat dinner that night. But there were still stresses and pressures and things that were not intentionally placed upon me, but that I
Mhm.
felt as a child.
Totally.
At the end of the day, a lot of parents most parents, I would say, are doing their best. They're
Yeah.
doing their absolute best, but at the end of the day, we're all imperfect people. And so when two imperfect people come together, they procreate and they make a baby, and then they start raising that baby. Of course, there are going to be little tiny imperfections, and that baby is going to be imperfect too.
Yeah.
And so we're all just different variations of screwed up, as I've heard it said.
I think that part of it is maybe that, I mean, it makes it maybe infinitely worse is that there's an expectation that, of course, you're good. So if you're in a society where, like, we know that you're not doing well, fine. But when we're expecting all good and hunky dory and no issues, that becomes toxic on its own because you're not talking about it because you're supposed to all be doing good.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah,
Okay, so this is not planned. The Price of Privilege. Have you heard of this book by Madeline
I have
Levine?
not. I'm going to write
The
that down.
Brock, The Price of Privilege, and the subtitle is How Parental Pressure and Material Advantage Are Creating a Generation of Disconnected and
Mm,
Unhappy Kids. And this was written
mm.
in 2008. 2008 this was written.
Wow.
So, what did you need, do you think, from your community around you as you were struggling and looking like the golden child and you had like everything you needed? What did you
Yeah.
need from those at the community?
Yeah, and this is what, like, when I've worked on this in therapy, this is what I go back and tell that, young Brock, is that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to just be okay. Like, it's not perfect or bust. It's not NFL quarterback or bust. It's not state champion quarterback or bust. It's not A plus or bust. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be human.
Mm,
To try to be perfect is rejecting your own humanity, because humans are always going to be imperfect. And so,
mhm,
yeah, I wish
mhm.
I could go back and tell that little kid, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. It's
Yeah.
okay to mess up. Because I was definitely still a fun kid and an enthusiastic kid, and like those character traits were still there. But I was also quite frequently fueled by an underlying stress or anxiety that I had to be perfect.
Sure. Which was probably unspoken
Hmm.
around your entire community. I see it here because we're in a wealthier enclave and I watch it's unspoken. And the
Yep.
parents are all really high achieving, doing really well, maybe highly educated. The kids all grow up thinking, I have to do that too. And there's unspoken dialogue amongst the kids of what you're supposed to do in life. And then the
Yep.
teachers at those schools take that on too. I've seen this
Yep.
over and over again.
Yeah,
What?
exactly. And kind of like I said in my first answer of like my background and where I came from, raised in a very entrepreneurial family, so I saw parents who were very successful in the business light. I also was raised in a county where my dad and uncle were both county all-star, all-American football players. They both went on to
Right.
play professional. My grandpa was the local high school football coach, and he's the second winningest coach in state history. And so there were all of these things that, like you said, they were unspoken, and
Unspoken.
yet they were examples all around me of, hey, everyone around you is, this is at least how I interpreted it as a child, everyone around you is perfect, so you better be, or you don't belong in the family.
So what would you say to, say, teachers at high academic schools about meeting the student wellness needs?
Yeah, I think that's a real challenge. I think that meeting each child with or where they are at, I should say. But also understanding that, hey, the A plus child might still need love and devotion and to hear certain words of encouragement, even if they're the A plus child. We might focus more on the kid who's almost flunking out, and that's where our attention would go. But the kids who are seeming like everything's great and everything's perfect and fine, they may need a different kind of love, but they're still going to need a certain affection and a certain attention.
I saw that all the time on the psych unit I worked at, where kids from all diverse backgrounds, and as soon as they come into me in an inpatient 3-week stay, guess what? Their problems are all the same, and all of the backstory and the parents that you have and the home you're from, it's all gone because they come together as humans and they're all facing the same challenges. Might look a little bit differently on the outside. They
Totally.
still are. Okay, let's shift on to mental health within Instagram and social media. While you're
Hmm.
talking, I'm realizing all of these pressures you had on you academically and growing up and, golden child and golden parents, that's kind of the world that we want to create on social media, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that is exactly the world that I'm not trying to create, and that's
Yeah.
exactly the world that I'm actively trying to destroy with my foundation, my founding principles of everything that I teach on social media.
Mm,
It's funny because if someone's listening to this and they follow me on social, they might think that this is the exact opposite of what I represent on social now, because I am very known to go off on rants and stand on my soapbox during trainings and workshops, going off about the need to embrace imperfections, the need
mm,
to
mhm.
reject the perfect post, the need to reject this hyper filtered, fake, curated reality that so many people are portraying on social media. One of my things, like if you were to ask my followers, what is Brock known for? Besides maybe like breakfast burritos and snowboarding, the third thing they would probably say is typos. I am known for having so many
Sure.
typos in my content, to the point where one time I changed my name on Instagram and there was a typo in my name, and I was locked
And you
into
kept
that typoed name for 60 days. And it was a hilarious shtick a few years ago, because I did so much inner work and so much healing before becoming
mm,
successful on social media and before really growing this brand online. I was very aware of how I could show up and the sorts of messages that I could spread in the world and the ones I did and didn't want to spread. And so I've been very intentional about, embrace your imperfections, show up raw, unfiltered, make typos, whatever, throw the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, as my general overarching approach to social media.
so what you're saying is you walked into it with a solid foundation.
Yeah, I did.
You had a foundation to be imperfect and that was okay with you.
Yeah, and I want to say, of course, this isn't like a, I finished that book. I think people sometimes have a misconception that it's like, well, I checked mental health off the to-do list and I'm done now.
Yeah.
It's definitely not that. Like I, still have tons of, things I'm working through, challenges, perfectionism, defensiveness, stuff like that. But I was at least aware. And that's just a huge difference. Being aware of those things allows you to spot them more easily when they do start to crop up, and to shift your intentions in how you show up.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I had this kind of baseline, this foundation when I started growing on Instagram.
Right. But not everybody does.
Very true.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then with that, so you had your foundation. What do you see like in your lens? Are you 27 now?
I'm 27. Yeah.
27. Okay, I got that right. What do you feel and what do you observe that is happening around you? So take yourself out from this, but what do you
Okay.
see happening around you in your generation and your
Hmm.
generation Z, 1995 birth onward,
Yeah.
within mental health and maybe within the realm of social media where that's what you know?
Yeah. I noticed that there's kind of an interesting almost divide amongst different social media platforms. And one thing that I kind of enjoy is that I'm like a zillennial, right? Like some people draw the Gen Z versus millennial line at 95, some do
Sure.
97. So I'm like
You're
I'm the oldest Gen Z, or I'm the youngest millennial. But either way,
yeah,
um,
you're on
I
that
think
cusp.
that, Yeah, and this is likely going to be airing after the whole TikTok is decided. If whether or not it's going to be banned, who knows? It's interesting on TikTok. That's really one of the first platforms where people have begun to embrace the less curated reality, the less filtered reality, the more off the cuff. You know, if you scroll through TikToks for a while, you're going to see a lot of people just whipping out their phone and talking to the camera like they're on a FaceTime with their friend. There are definitely still pressures. There are definitely still curated realities. I mean, at the end of the day, unless you are doing a 24/7 live stream with a GoPro strapped to your forehead, you ultimately are curating something. You're
Right.
choosing what to share and what not to
Yeah.
share. But it does seem like, in general, there seems to be a gravitation towards, a trend towards, a yearning for like what's real, what's honest, and what's authentic. But there is
Mhm.
still this underlying foundation that social media was kind of built on, and what was definitely the norm across all social media for the first 10 to 15 years that social media existed, which is that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be
Mhm.
photoshopped and pretty and curated. And speaking again, to bring this full circle about different platforms, I do notice that the way people interact with platforms like YouTube or Instagram, my forte, is still more curated, more intentional, more filtered and photoshopped, perfected, if you will, than a platform like TikTok, which is one of the reasons
Mhm.
that I hope TikTok doesn't go away.
Right.
But to speak on a broader sense, I hope that we can continue to embrace this imperfect content. It's going to be a constant uphill battle for numerous reasons, but
Yeah.
I hope that's a trend that we can head towards.
My concern is it's the nature of the beast because you're putting something out there that you can't take away. So you kind of
Yeah.
maybe want to look better. Like, look at me, I got makeup on right now, right? I
Yeah.
won't be on my podcasting without makeup. And the reality is, it's the nature of maybe us as humans and what we want to portray. I'll never forget my friend. We were in our early 40s, and I've never been in social media until honestly October of this past year.
I
And
love it.
she said, well, I didn't have to, right? And I said, I don't care about
Mhm.
your latte. I don't have time to care about the swirl on your latte. But then I've been forced to jump in. What she said to me over 10 years ago was, I'm creating a brand being put out there. And yet I'm showing them all my great food. I'm showing my great night out. And nobody sees me crying myself to sleep at night. So people want the authenticity.
Yeah.
They
Yeah. And I
do.
think, I think that that has been like, there have been so many mental health challenges that have either been accelerated, spotlighted,
Yeah.
um, amplified since 2020. But one thing that I think has changed since 2020 is, right, we were all on our phones for 2020. And so many of us were just sitting
Mm.
there scrolling social media all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And there were no fancy vacations to post. There was no latte art. There was no
Yeah.
date night out. There was none of that. It was just like, hey, we're all in our
Mm.
houses for a few months. And so I think that that kind of allowed a lot of people to embrace the imperfections and kind of like rip off that band-aid and
Right.
remove the
Right.
veil, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's hopefully a trend that can continue. I do think that that was a real catalyst.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I really like, I was reading about this, just my own research about the beast of social media that I don't know of. I know the rotary phone. So social media is a little bit new for me. But just this yearning I've been reading about of authenticity, and don't re-edit the video, and just
Yeah.
people want, well, I think it's people want meaning and purpose. And if you're in a
Yeah.
made up world, you're not going to get the meaning and purpose. It's like you with your parents.
Yeah.
If you've got everything
Yeah.
given to you, there's not meaning and purpose. It's not authentic.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing that I do find very interesting in working with so many content creators and business owners is that there's this kind of like dichotomy where they, on one hand, very much yearn for the real, the authentic, the genuine,
Mm,
but they are so scared to do it themselves. They're so scared to
sure.
be it. They want to see it, but they're so scared to be it. They're so scared to be the one who posts the imperfection or
Yeah.
posts the talking head video when there's like a pile of laundry in the background. And so that is like a challenge that is never going to away and going to go away. And like you said, it's very much tied to the nature of the beast. But it is an interesting kind of juxtaposition between the what I want to see versus what I want to be.
Totally. And another thing too, and I speak now from my experience of jumping into all of this in October, is I know differently. I grew up honestly running through the forest with my dog. And I
Hmm.
remember my grandparents' phone number on a rotary phone where you that nine, like you dialed a nine and it's the long one, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I know that it's not right for me to wake up in the morning and first thing I think about is who responded to a post because I really care about this. Like I know that it's not healthy and I
yeah,
know about boundaries. But my concern that I've seen is I have grown up from a different generation. So especially younger than you, because you're on the cusp of kids, that's all that they know. It's
yeah,
all they don't know a rotary phone. They don't know like talking face to face to deal with
yeah.
conflict. And I say something and it's not scrutinized by however many people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing and to speak to your point, something that's very interesting that's happening right now, specifically within, the time that we're having this conversation, one of the things that people are saying that they're going to do if TikTok is banned is they're going to go outside and touch grass and be one with nature
Oh,
and they're going to be
really?
off social media. There's no way that's going to happen.
No,
Like there is
no.
no way. I would bet every cent that I've ever owned that that's not going to happen because these algorithms were trained to be addictive. These algorithms are perfected to constantly be better and better and better and more addictive. And
Yeah.
so as the user, you're like, this is so enjoyable. This is so pleasant to just scroll for a little bit. It's very much like a cigarette. Like it's designed to be addictive. It's designed to,
Yeah.
okay, I can just kind of like take a deep breath and lighten the load and disconnect from reality and have a smoke break, have a TikTok break, have an Instagram
Right.
break. And so your brain is not going to be able to go from 3 to 5 hours a day of the most curated dopamine possible to like, oh no, I'm going to go be present with myself. I'm going to go listen to my breath and go be in nature. Like there's no chance.
Well, and the other thing too, Brock, this has been my recent experience, is you actually have no choice but to enter in if there's certain things you want to do. So when I taught public school, I was away from all social media. I didn't need it. I was on a salary. I had my own thing going. I don't care about the latte. But I now, okay, I want to write a book for my thesis. Guess what? Who am I? She's nobody.
Yep.
Is the book going to sell? No. Or I want to do like public speaking. Guess what? If this person's not on LinkedIn, we're not even looking at her. So I've had to jump in for the things that I want to do. So I think depending on professions, there are young people that have no choice because they need
Yeah.
this in 2025 to get where they want to be.
And it's an unfortunate reality, and it is absolutely the reality, especially in a world where the 9 to 5 isn't meeting the needs, the salary isn't keeping up with inflation, and people are
Mhm.
turning to side hustles and entrepreneurship. And again, I can see both sides of the coin. I can see the beauty of being able to work from home and make money, no matter where you are. But I also see the challenges of, and I heard this said so eloquently the other day, if you were someone 100 years ago who worked in a factory and built cars, when you went home, you left your tools
Yes,
at the shop and you could not work. But
totally.
now your work is your phone and your work is your brain. It's your own thoughts and decision making. And that's something that you can't take out and leave somewhere. And so,
Yeah.
every thought, every idea, every quote that you hear might be an idea for a post. And
Yeah.
so it's becomes so much tougher to
Yeah.
to turn off the work brain, to turn off the social media addiction.
And again, for those of us that are older, we know a different period of time. But
Yeah.
for kids younger than you, this is their world. This is what they know. And I don't even know if some of them would go, hold on a second. Like, what's the boundary around this?
Yeah,
Because it's how it's
exactly.
our new world, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're going to shift and you're going to now teach me and give me some
Okay.
advice. You ready for this? This is based on my own experience. So, number one,
Okay.
the fixation. But you wake up in the morning and you go, huh, like, did anybody respond? Do I have any notifications? And you check your phone. So tell me, what do you do to navigate that fixation? And I'm not, maybe not the addiction of scrolling, I mean, but just you've posted something and who has responded? What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah, I think just like creating habits or literal physical barriers around that consumption. Something that has worked for me in the past is like put your phone in another room, buy a typical alarm clock. I know we're all like,
Yeah,
oh, I use my phone as my alarm. Buy
I
a
did it.
$10 alarm clock and put your
Mhm.
phone in the other room so that at least for the first, I don't know, 30 minutes, wait until you brush your teeth and pour yourself a cup of coffee before you even pick up your phone, just so that your brain isn't instantly like, I need a hit. I need a quick scroll. And I very much think that checking notifications and checking who responded and what did they say is the exact same dopamine, and it's the exact same fire that needs fueling as the fire of the person who's just the consumer and just wants to scroll and watch some more videos.
Right, right. Okay, you've just led into my second question about dopamine. So,
Yeah.
just we know so much about dopamine and the fix that happens and the raised dopamine level of social media, which is the addiction that you talked about earlier, that we don't think it's going to go away anywhere as much as our young people want to go run and frolic in a field of flowers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do you then, I mean, it's linked to the last question, but how do you stop that dopamine hit that comes that keeps you on that platform to
Yeah.
allow
Yeah.
healthier dopamine fixes?
Yeah. Number one, turn your phone in black and white mode.
Oh, okay.
iPhones have it, and I'm sure Android has way more features than iPhone anyway, so I'm sure Android has it, but there's somewhere in your settings where you can put your phone in black and white. And one of the cool things on the latest iPhones is there's like a button you can press, or maybe you like triple press it, and you can customize what it does. And so for me, when I triple press, I think it's my on off switch, it turns my screen to black and white. And so you could do that for a few hours a day, and that will just lower the level of dopamine. You won't
Mm,
be as addicted to the scroll if you're watching a black and white video, if then compared to if you're watching a in color video. So I think that's one helpful tip. And then just in general, having someone else to hold you accountable is also really helpful. Like having someone else who's going to be like, hey, and this is a great thing that something my wife and I developed. I do not work after 5 p.m. unless I absolutely have to. Unless
mm,
I have a call that is at 6 p.m. or something, I do not work. I don't take meetings, I don't do emails, nothing. And part of that is I don't create content. So I might allow myself to scroll, but I'm not going to create content. So if my wife looks over and we're sitting on the couch and we're supposed to be watching the newest season of Squid Games together, and instead she looks over and I'm like scripting a
yeah,
post or editing a reel or doing some sort of work, responding to an email, she'll call me out on it. And so she won't be mean about it. She'll just be like, hey, what are you doing right now? And I'll be like, I just, I was responding to an email, and I'll stop.
right.
So having someone to hold you accountable, and you can hold them accountable too, to
Mhm.
limit your scrolling or limit your total screen time or something like that could be really helpful.
What do you think about location? Because this has come up with my daughter, and she'll
Mhm.
lose herself to Instagram for a good few hours. And guess what? She's in her bedroom on her bed. And what do I know? I'm like, I think if the phone's out of the room off your bed, it's going to be harder to just get into that mode where before you
Yeah.
know it, 2 hours have flown by and you've not done your studies.
Yeah, yeah. There's this guy who's kind of like one of those people he wants to live forever, and he's like, all about being young. And he says like, my bed is just for sleeping, and my bedroom is just for sleeping. I don't think you need to go like to that extreme, but I do think to the point about like locations and triggers is a huge part of it. If every time you sit down on the couch, you pull out your phone and you start watching your videos, like that's going to become your habit. Same thing with laying in bed. Like if you're going to lay in bed and watch videos, all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by. So yeah, having certain like parameters of I'm only going to watch TikTok or watch Reels or watch YouTube while I'm standing in the kitchen. As awkward as that may
Yeah.
be, I guarantee you that that will limit the amount of time that you're scrolling, or it will
Yeah.
significantly increase the number of hours you're standing and walking around the kitchen.
There's neuroplasticity involved in this, like rewiring your neural pathways so that you're used to
Mm.
that, right? Like that you're setting up those habits for yourself, which I'm trying to do. Okay, how do you keep it authentic? So we talked about authenticity, we want it, but we also have this crazy thing called human nature and things
Yeah.
that are out for the world to see. So how do you keep it authentic?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think
Now, I want
like
you right now.
authenticity is like such a big, big topic. I think as cliche as it may sound, be yourself. But what does that mean? Like, what does that actually look like? If you are creating content, you're filming a video, you're getting ready to post something online, and it feels uncomfortable, first of all, recognize that it feels uncomfortable. Second, let's analyze why does it feel uncomfortable? Does it feel uncomfortable because it's something you just haven't done before, you haven't
Mhm.
practiced a lot of? Or does it feel uncomfortable because you were not yourself in that video? You were trying to emulate what you heard some YouTuber talk like, or you were trying to speak in the same way that your favorite vlogger speaks. And I
Right.
think that there's a distinction there. And I think it's up to each person to really discern, am I being like myself, or am I trying to replicate someone else? And also, I think when you're first getting started, there is a fair amount of you've never done this before. You
Yeah.
don't know how you're going to show up online. And no, it's not authentic the first time you post a video online because you've never done it before. You could try to be as similar online to as you are in real life, but at the end of the day, there are filters. There is literally a camera or a microphone or an app facilitating this communication. It's not you. It's not something you're used to doing. And so when you are first getting started, you might adopt some habits or some, vocal patterns or speaking terms even that someone else who you follow and look up to has used. And that's okay. But just make sure that over time you're starting to embrace and be more of yourself and embrace the quirks, the imperfections like we talked about earlier.
Within my experience, I've been talking a lot about this as I've kind of been wrapping my head around this new world for me, is the
Hmm.
power of not caring.
Mm.
If I don't care, it's probably going to be more authentic,
Yeah.
right? You just let go.
Yeah.
And my interesting for me, like I'm off this year on an unpaid leave to launch this. Okay. I am not getting my teaching salary to do what I'm doing right here, right now. And holy smokes, you start caring. My year is on this. So the post
Yeah.
response is what I put out there. So including, I think the authenticity is really hindered, messed up if we care so much because now we've got so much vested in it, and that everything else I think might come into place. I didn't care about your lattes before. Didn't bother me.
Yeah. No, it's definitely true. Something I hear from people is that to get specific about Instagram, even the post that I spent the least amount of time on, that I just kind of like whipped up and put together super fast, didn't think about it, that was the post that surprised me and did the best. And at the same time, the post that I thought the most about, edited the most, took the most time researching, that I was like sure would be the best post, the viral post, that's the one that did the worst. And what I
And
tell people is that yes, exactly, because the more time you spend thinking about it,
mhm,
editing it, perfecting it, curating it, you think you're making it better, but you're making it less authentic.
totally.
And something I'm not smart enough, I'm not a scientist enough to know why that is, but I just know that that is, and that happens when you perform and post on social media in that way. And so
Hmm.
that's why I always tell people, learn from that and just embrace the like, hey, I whipped something up fast and I put it out there into the world. And if it didn't do well, at least it didn't take you very much time to whip up and put
Yeah,
out into the world anyways.
but you have to not care.
Yeah,
I think otherwise you're going to
that's a
scrutinize
skill.
everything, and you're just going to be sitting there. Maybe I've seen kids frozen by caring too much.
Yeah.
Literally, it's debilitating. Okay, I'm almost done. One of my new terms now of this year that I've had is sadly never enough.
Mm.
You're never, you could always have more followers. You could always put more posts. You could always have better engagement. You're never enough has been my two words that have for me been my biggest experience. So how do I stop that never enough phenomenon where I'm in front of an entire world and I'm constantly getting feedback? LinkedIn, I constantly get the analytics. How many posts, well, say on all platforms, right? How many views I got, and go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that specifically, and I could have said this earlier when we were talking about dopamine, turn off notifications.
I know,
Like
I know.
whether it's an actual push notification that shows
Yeah.
up on your phone's home screen or like the little red number, turn all those off. I haven't had any of those on in a decade. Like turn those off, not helpful. But to speak more specifically about this, like never enough, I people do not like when I say this because again, I'm a man in the world of entrepreneurship
Hmm.
where very much the stigma and the prevailing advice is like hustle culture and work harder and
Yeah.
grind and burn the midnight oil and whatnot. And I very much preach about satisfaction and being content. And I often say like you need to be content where you are now with what you
Mhm.
have now. Or else when you get to wherever you think you want to go, whenever you achieve the number of followers, views, likes, sales, money, whatever that you want to have, you will still not be content because you're still the same you. You still have the
Yeah.
same internal feelings. You're still not content. It's not good enough.
Mhm.
And so you have to, and this is not easy. Like none of the things I've said today are easy. None of the things I've said today are quick. They're skills and they're habits that take, months, if not years of hard work to develop for yourself. But truly being content. Content doesn't mean like you are settling, but it means that your soul is settled. One of my goals for 2025, I posted about this the other day, is I want to hit 1 million followers. That'd be cool. That's something to put out there in the world, but it's not because I want more. I'm very content with where I am now. And I'm often asked, like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your long-term vision? I flip and love the life I have right now. I love the life that my wife and I are living. I love that I get to snowboard whenever I want. Like, if you told little kid Brock that this is the life I live right now, I would be beyond ecstatic. And I am beyond ecstatic every single day that I get to wake up and live this life. And this is a contentment that I've been feeling even before I was living the exact life that I'm living right now. And so developing that contentment allows you to show up not in a place of desperation, but show up in a place of gratitude, show up with a heart where you are giving to others and you're able to not view every single other person in the world as competition. And why did their post do so well? Why did they get to go viral? Why did I not get to do those things? Again, something easier said than done, but it's something that I think is necessary if you want to do this whole social media as a business thing long term.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of therapy involved in it,
Lots of
right?
therapy for me.
People with
Yeah.
what they've been through to be to that point. Okay, last, and then I do 3 wrap-up questions, but I want to know,
Okay.
how then do you keep your self-worth with all of this? How do you keep your self-worth intact on these platforms?
Because what matters to me is not how many followers I have, which might sound kind of funny because I just said my goal for this year is 1 million.
Yeah.
It's my goal is not income marks. It's not
Mhm.
engagement. My goal is a lot less quantitative. My goal is to be the best possible husband I can be, the best possible brother I can be to my sister, the best possible son I can be to my parents. And those intimate, close relationships and the way that I treat those around me that I love matters a lot more to me than the way I am perceived by the people who hardly know me because they follow me on Instagram. And so that's really where my self-worth comes from. And again, like you said, lots and lots of therapy, lots and lots of therapy over the years.
Well, getting to that place, right, of just solid ground and that foundation you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And I think we've got so many people that come from homes that they need therapy. And so then you want to be positioned well to be
Yeah.
in this world. A side comment, you don't have to answer this if you want. I'm just curious what you think of, why do we have so many influencers that we see die by suicide? It seems like a
I
pretty high
think that
number.
I think it's really everything we've talked about today, and the lack of resources or the lack of perceived resources that these people have, and so they're feeling all of these pressures, all these negative things that we've talked about today: the pressures, the stresses, the comparison, the imperfections, the yearning to be perfect or whatever. All of these things, and it's crippling, it's debilitating. It feels like you're literally losing yourself. You have nothing to live for if you're not getting the status, the views, the goals, whatever that you want. And unfortunately, they don't see a way out.
Well, and I think you said it too. Like, your goals are ultimately husband, brother, son. Like, you have meaningful, purposeful goals that go beyond a screen and go beyond
Yeah.
responses and followings. I'm wondering if that's a huge part of it, is when you shift a focus and you want your meaning and purpose out of something that is on a platform. That's problematic because you're never enough. You're never
Yeah.
enough. And you, as a
Yeah.
husband, son, brother, you're enough.
Exactly.
I just thought of that.
I agree.
It's okay. I always end with 3 wrap-up questions. They take us back to my loop of wanting to talk about this, mental health and social media. Here's number 1. If there is a single thing that you could change on, say, Instagram to bring wellness, to bring up wellness, what is the one thing on Instagram that you would change as that platform?
I think it would be super interesting if we could tap a little button and see maybe the total time or what edits were made to content. So if we could see like this content, this video took 3 hours to edit. This video needed 17 minutes in this editing app and then 14 revisions in Photoshop and then 3 filters. I think if we could see that, like what modifications have been
Mm.
made, I think that would be really eye-opening for people.
Brock, that's just like, so back in the 1990s, models came out to say, do you realize how this is photoshopped? Like, do you want
Hmm.
to see the before and the after? And all of you young girls that are watching us models, this is
Yeah.
completely construed. And that came, I remember it was in the 90s, and there was
Yeah. I
more
think,
dialogue.
is there, I don't know if it's like some specific country or maybe if it's in Europe as a whole, but if there are advertisements featuring models and the models have been photoshopped or altered in any way, they have to disclose that at the bottom
Mm,
of the advertisement.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing, right? Because what you're doing now is you're bringing the reality forth of what
Yes.
was presented to you that is affecting maybe your wellness or you're never enough for your self-worth.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, here's number two. I asked you all the questions to help guide me as my own in my own mental health on social media. What are your top three daily habits? I know you've listed off a bunch, but the top three within social media and your home lifestyle that keep your wellness, keep
Yeah.
up your mental health.
I think the first habit, if you will, that is daily for me is reliance upon my team within our business. We have a
Mm,
very large team within my own personal, like Instagram. I have multiple people who help me out. And so reliance on others is
yeah.
absolutely huge and essential. I don't know, like, it's not as much of a habit as like brushing your teeth, but it's still something that I'm doing every single day. Another thing that I am very intentional about is incorporating play into my day, into my life,
Mm,
into everything that I'm doing. Just having fun with it. I think that oftentimes we get so removed from play, and play could be something as direct as like signing up for the rec basketball league and going and playing basketball every
yeah,
Tuesday night.
that makes sense. And because you're allowing yourself like a break away into what is right in front of you and real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also said you don't look at your phone in the morning.
Yeah, so that's a big one. That's something I have to get back into the habit of because for a few months this year, my wife and I were kind of bouncing around a little bit, and so it wasn't as easy. But now that we're back in our home, yeah, reincorporating that habit of the phone is in the bathroom, I am in the bedroom, and so
Yeah.
it's at
Yeah.
least a little bit removed. So I don't check it first thing in the morning, and then before I go to bed at night, I like to spend at least an hour turning my brain off, not even reading like a self-help or personal development hook or book or business book, but just like reading like a fiction book, right?
Right.
Like just
Yeah.
opening up, cracking open some Harry Potter and doing that before bed rather than scrolling or reading something
Yeah.
that should, be more productive.
Your 5 p.m. turn off sounds very good. Especially if
Yes,
it gives you your
it's very
time,
helpful.
your brain time too, before you actually go to sleep to remove from it. Okay.
Yeah.
Last wrap up question. What will your advice or boundaries with your own children be one day about everything Instagram and social media?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot more
Yeah.
recently. I think I think what we will likely do in our family is no social media prior to the age of, I'll give a blanket statement, 16. I do think that that could be dependent upon, different maturity levels, what's going on, what the social media is, when the child is 16. But I think 16 is like a rough number. Like if I'm going to trust you to drive around a 2,500 pound car, I think I could, more or less not, maybe not unsupervised, but trust you to start using social media. But really, I think that unsupervised is the key word. And that's something that my parents did when I was growing up. I was, of age. I think I was in middle school when Instagram came out.
Mm,
And so no one knew about the dangers of social media yet. We were just
right.
getting phones and smartphones for the first time. But one thing my parents did really well is they were always, we at least always felt like they were supervising. That doesn't mean that every night we
Sure.
hand our phones to mom and dad and they scroll, but we knew that mom and dad had our logins. We knew that
Mm,
mom and dad, they ultimately were the owners of our phone. And so
mhm.
we didn't ever want to do anything. We didn't ever want to scroll. We didn't ever want to look at things or anything like that because we knew that mom and dad could check.
Yeah.
And so I think that just knowing that that was there was enough for my sister and I to, be mindful, if nothing
Mhm.
else, of our consumption habits and what we were doing online.
I think the challenging part of that is that if that's your platform for all of your friendships and getting together, like I've had kids say to me, well, it's social suicide because I'm not going to be connected, which I know is
Yeah.
a challenge for parents to say, well, we want our kids to connected, so we're going to let them do
Yeah.
this because that's how everybody is communicating these days.
Yeah, and I very much think my stances and my views could change by the time my kids are of social media age. But that's at least my gut right now.
Brock, thank you for your time so much.
I
Thank
appreciate you.
Thanks for listening. Now, you can subscribe to this channel if you want to get more content about learning how we find authentic connections, and click like on that little link below. But more, share this with somebody who needs to build more of their own wellness and foster relationships with other people. I'll see you next time.